It's time for the Left of Lansing Friday Short with Pat Johnston.
Here's the Left of Lansing Friday Short for July 19th of 2024. As President Biden's campaign continues to struggle and more congressional and Senate Democrats call on him to step aside in order to save democracy, some of his most ardent supporters are claiming that by forcing Biden out of the race for Vice President Kamala Harris or whoever else, that will bring all kinds of chaos within the party with just 3 months left in the campaign. And you're hearing some claiming that the chaos of the 1968 Democratic Convention gave us Richard Nixon, and the same will happen this year by giving the country Donald Trump. Many people that I read and follow and whom I agree with like 90% of the time are the ones making this argument, like historian Nikole Hannah-Jones. She says that 1968 must serve as a lesson for all of us calling for Biden to drop out. She tweeted an electoral college map from the 1968 race between Democratic Vice President Hubert Humphrey and former Republican VP Richard Nixon. The map showed Nixon winning with 301 electoral college votes, which she says proves her point how the Democratic turmoil that year handed Nixon the election. But I think there's another angle here from that whole exercise, and that's Richard Nixon won by less than a percentage point. Democrats still coalesced to make it a close race, so it really wasn't a blowout. But I have to say this, though. Nikole Hannah-Jones is making a terrific argument as to why my state of Michigan must pass Democratic State Representative Carrie Reinkantz's bill, making my state part of the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact because the Electoral College sucks and it has given us the biggest right-wing majority on the Supreme Court. And yes, by using this system, Nixon won the popular vote, so he still would have won regardless of the Electoral College, but that's not the point. I don't believe Biden is being pushed out simply because of popular vote concerns. In fact, a lot of polls are showing Biden and Trump are running pretty close across the country. However, we know that Democrats must win the popular vote by some 4 percentage points. And don't forget, just 44,000 votes in Georgia, Arizona, and Wisconsin separated Biden from Trump from a tie in the Electoral College. So, Biden won by over 7 million votes nationwide, but it came down to just 44,000 votes to help Biden secure the Electoral College victory. Again, this is why Michigan must join the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Also, though, swing state polls aren't augmenting Biden's argument to stay in the race, which is why Democratic leaders are now going public in saying that Biden must step down. But I want to address the 1968 Democratic Convention boogeyman argument here, if you don't mind. There was going to be a fight in that convention no matter what after Lyndon Johnson announced that he wasn't running again. Now, despite many of Johnson's tremendous domestic policy victories, the Vietnam War tore the Democratic Party apart. When Minnesota Senator Eugene McCarthy nearly defeated Johnson in the New Hampshire primary that year, and then this New York senator by the name of Bobby Kennedy decided to stir everything up and get into the race, which scared the hell out of Nixon and the Republicans. Johnson saw the writing on the wall, and he stepped down. Now, Bobby joined McCarthy as running as the anti-war candidate, but he was able to pull together a coalition of voters consisting of working-class whites, blacks, and Hispanic voters. He would then go on to win the Indiana, D.C., Nebraska, and South Dakota primaries, but it was his victory in the winner-take-all California primary that gave Bobby Kennedy all kinds of momentum heading into Chicago. Now, Bobby was in second place to Hubert Humphrey in the delegate lead, and Humphrey hadn't entered the race, I believe, until late April, but he couldn't touch Bobby in any of those primaries. But right after his California primary victory, of course, Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. Now, we'll never know, of course, but had Bobby Kennedy won, it's always been my belief that he wins the nomination, and then he goes on to defeat Richard Nixon quite handily, I think. But RFK wasn't there. The convention was in chaos, thanks in part, don't forget, to Chicago Mayor Richard Daley's sending in his cops to beat up college students protesting the Vietnam War. That caused an implosion inside the Democratic convention, but still, Democrats came together and nearly defeated Nixon. Don't forget that. So if Biden steps down, Democrats will have plenty of time to coalesce around the top of the ticket, which I believe has to be Kamala Harris, and then maybe one of our popular Democratic governors will serve as her VP choice. Also, let's not forget, Trump is no Nixon. All right, as we watch from that Republican National Convention speech, Donald Trump's brain is mush, and he can be defeated quite easily. All Democrats need is an aggressive, energetic, and articulate messenger. You know, you hear people always say, a week is a lifetime in politics. Okay then, 3 months is plenty of time to win the election for Democrats, and just think of all of the excitement this year's Democratic convention will bring to the public. And please stop using the specter of the 1968 Democratic Convention as a reason to be scared about getting Biden to step aside. The circumstances are different, and despite the chaos of that 1968 convention, as I just talked about, Democrats nearly won and probably would have won had Bobby Kennedy lived. Pass the torch to Harris and allow her and the party to go on a torrid campaign blitz for the next 3 months. It'll energize the base, and it will bring in so many independent voters. But most of all, it will help so many down-ballot Democrats, which is the ultimate goal, especially here in Michigan, as we fight to keep the state house blue. Don't be afraid. As FDR said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Don't be afraid. leftoflansing@gmail.com is the best way to reach me. Subscribe to the podcast and also subscribe to Left of Lansing on YouTube. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, the Gram, and Facebook. Take the battle to them.